The quiet worker, and the storm that followed the grocery store on Sycamore Street had always been quiet around noon. Most people were either at work or inside their homes trying to escape the summer heat, but today felt different, not because of the temperature or the crowd, but because of something nobody saw coming. Something that would begin with a cruel comment and end with the world seeing kindness in its most powerful form. Inside the store, near the self-checkout counters, a young man named Ben was helping organize shopping baskets and assisting elderly customers. Ben had Down syndrome. He wore a bright orange vest that was a little too big for him and a name tag that read Ben. Here to help. His smile was gentle. His words came slowly, but his heart was wide open. He greeted every person with sincerity. Some looked away, some smiled back, and a few took time to say thank you. He didn't mind the silence or the stares. He had grown up with them. People often treated him like he was invisible or like he was too different to understand things. But Ben had learned to focus on the good. His mother told him every morning, "Kindness is your superpower, Ben. You wear it better than anyone." And so he wore it proudly. Today, Ben noticed an older woman struggling with her groceries. She had dropped a can of tomato soup, and it rolled under a shelf. Without hesitation, Ben bent down and crawled awkwardly under the shelf to retrieve it. As he came up, holding the dusty can with pride, a sharp voice cut through the air. "Great. Took you long enough," said a tall man with slick-back hair and dark sunglasses. He wore a suit and had a Bluetooth headset in one ear. "You people shouldn't be working here. If you can't do things quickly, what's the point?" For a moment, everything stopped. A cashier behind the counter looked up. A mother holding a child froze. Ben blinked, still holding the can. He didn't understand why the man was angry. He had helped, hadn't he? "I just wanted to help," Ben said softly, his voice trembling. The man scoffed. "You want to help? Then stay out of the way. People like you are a waste of everyone's time." Ben's lip quivered. His fingers tightened around the can. He didn't know where to look. His eyes searched for a safe place, a crack in the wall, a shadow on the floor, anything but the man's angry face. What no one noticed, not yet at least, was the man standing 2 aisles over. He had a baseball cap pulled low over his forehead and a shopping basket with just a bottle of water and a banana inside. He had walked in quietly, like he always did. He didn't want attention. He just wanted a moment of normal life. But now his eyes were fixed on Ben, and his expression had changed. It was Keanu Reeves. Keanu watched as Ben slowly set the can back into the woman's shopping bag, his hands trembling. The woman whispered a soft thank you and looked at the tall man with unease. But she didn't say anything else. The store manager was nowhere in sight, and the other employees looked unsure, caught in that awful space between fear and duty. Keanu stepped forward. But not yet. Not with words. He walked to the checkout and stood behind the rude man, quietly placing his 2 items on the belt. The man glanced back, did a double take, and then smirked. "Wait, are you Keanu Reeves?" he asked, pulling off his sunglasses like a performer ready to pose. Keanu gave a soft smile, the kind that didn't quite reach his eyes. "I am. Wow. Hey man. I'm a big fan. Loved you in that Matrix movie. And John Wick, of course." Keanu nodded. "Thank you." The man leaned closer. "Listen, if you're filming something around here, I'm an actor too. Done some commercials. You should check out my demo reel." Keanu didn't respond right away. Instead, he glanced over at Ben, who had quietly stepped back and was now wiping down the carts with slow, shaky movements. Keanu's gaze returned to the man. "You know," Keanu said calmly, "I've met a lot of people in this world. Famous ones, powerful ones, and some of the kindest, strongest people you'd never expect. Like that young man right there." The man followed his eyes and scoffed. "You mean the slow kid?" Keanu took a breath. The air in the store had become still. "He's not slow," Keanu said. "He's brave. Do you know what it takes to keep showing up every day in a world that mocks you? Do you know the strength it takes to be kind when people are cruel to you for just being yourself?" The man shifted uncomfortably. "Come on, don't get dramatic," Keanu continued. his voice still calm but firm. You insulted someone who's trying to help, who's doing his best, not because he wants praise, but because he believes people are worth helping. And you tried to make him feel small. For what? To feel bigger. A small crowd was now gathering. Phones had come out. Someone was recording, though Keanu didn't seem to care. Ben stood still, his eyes wide. No one had ever stood up for him like this before, especially not someone like that. Keanu turned slightly, addressing the room. The world doesn't need more noise. It needs more kindness, more patience, more people like Ben. And then he walked over to Ben, knelt slightly so their eyes met, and said gently, "You're doing great, Ben. Thank you for helping that woman. That was kind, and kind is rare." Ben's eyes filled with tears, but they were not tears of pain. They were tears of something deeper, of being seen, of being heard, of being respected. The tall man tried to speak, but no words came out. And for the first time in that store, he looked small. What happened next would become a moment the internet couldn't stop talking about. But for Ben, it was more than viral fame. It was the beginning of something no one could have predicted. After the video went viral, everything changed. The next morning, Ben woke up to the smell of toast and the soft voice of his mother humming in the kitchen. He yawned, stretched, and sat up slowly. But something was different. His phone, the one he barely used except to watch cartoons and weather updates, was buzzing over and over again. He picked it up with a puzzled look. The screen showed a long list of missed calls, text messages, and social media alerts. He blinked, then rubbed his eyes. One notification stood out. Video of actor Keanu Reeves defending grocery employee goes viral. Watch the powerful moment here. Ben's heart skipped a beat. He rushed to the living room where his mom was buttering toast. Mom, did something happen yesterday with me and the man and Keanu?" She turned around with tears already in her eyes. She held up her phone. "Baby." The whole world saw what happened. Ben sat down slowly as his mom showed him the video. The exact moment when Keanu stood up for him. The quiet strength in Keanu's voice. The way he looked right at Ben and told him he mattered. The way the other customers had begun clapping softly, and someone had whispered, "That's what being a man really means." The video had millions of views. Strangers were commenting things like, "Ben is the real hero here, and we need more people like Keanu." And Ben, some even wrote, "I cried watching this. I have a brother with Down syndrome. Thank you." Ben's hands trembled, not from fear this time, but from something new, something warm. It was the feeling of being valued. Later, that day when Ben showed up to work, the world outside the grocery store looked the same. But inside, everything had changed. As he walked through the doors, the entire staff turned and started clapping. Even the shy cashier from aisle 3, who barely spoke before, stepped forward and gave him a hug. The manager, Mr. Lewis, looked emotional as he handed Ben a new vest, freshly ironed, with a small golden pin on the chest that said hero. "You didn't just represent this store yesterday, Ben," the manager said, his voice cracking. "You showed the world what true strength looks like, and we're proud of you." Ben looked down at the vest and whispered, "I was just helping." But something else was waiting for him at the back of the store. The break room had been transformed overnight. Balloons, snacks, a small banner that read "Thank you, Ben." And in the middle of the table, a letter, handwritten. The signature at the bottom was unmistakable. It was from Keanu. "Dear Ben, you reminded me yesterday of something I've always believed, that kindness, even when it's quiet, is more powerful than anything loud or cruel. I've been in a lot of movies, played a lot of characters, but you played yourself, and you made the world better. Thank you for being you." Keanu. Ben held the letter carefully, like it was made of glass. That evening, Ben and his mom sat together on the couch, watching more videos online, interviews, reactions, news reports. Even a few actors and musicians had posted their own responses. One young actress had shared how her older brother also had Down syndrome, and she was glad the world was finally seeing how amazing people like Ben truly were. But it wasn't just celebrities. A school teacher in Ohio said her entire class watched the video and then had a discussion about kindness and inclusion. A restaurant in Texas wrote a post saying they would be hiring more people with disabilities and training their staff better. A young boy with autism made a drawing of Ben standing next to Keanu, like superheroes, and his mom posted it with the caption, "My son found a new hero today." Ben's eyes filled with tears again. "I didn't mean to be a hero," he said softly. "I just wanted to help." His mom kissed his forehead. "And that's exactly what makes you one." But as the world celebrated Ben's quiet strength, not everyone was happy. Far away, in a fancy office with glass windows and dark wooden walls, the man who insulted Ben sat at his desk, staring at his phone. His name was Gary Morgan. He was a real estate investor and minor TV personality. And now, he was the most hated man on the internet. His name was trending for the wrong reasons. Memes were everywhere. "Don't be a Gary" had become a phrase people were using to warn others against arrogance and cruelty. Gary had tried to delete his social media accounts, but screenshots had already spread. Even one of his biggest clients had canceled a meeting with him. "We don't want to be associated with bullies," the email read. He slammed his fist on the desk and shouted. It was just one comment, one moment. Why does everyone care so much? But deep inside, he knew. It wasn't just about one comment. It was about who he had chosen to be when nobody expected kindness. His phone buzzed again. Another call, this time from his agent. "Gary, we need to talk. The studios won't touch you. Sponsors are backing out. You need to apologize. Publicly. And it better be real." Gary leaned back, covering his face. For the first time in a long time, he felt powerless. The next day, Ben was invited to appear on a local morning show. His mom went with him. The host greeted them warmly and asked gentle questions. Ben spoke slowly but clearly. When the host asked, "What would you say to that man now?" Ben paused, then said something no one expected. "I would say, I hope you're okay." The host looked surprised. "You would say that to someone who hurt you?" Ben nodded. "Because if he was really happy, he wouldn't need to make someone else feel bad." The entire studio went quiet. Then the audience applauded. And far away, in his cold office, Gary saw the clip on his laptop. He didn't cry, not yet. But for the first time, he sat in silence, not to be angry, but to think. Meanwhile, something even more surprising was happening behind the scenes. Keanu Reeves was making plans, not for a movie, not for a red carpet event. He had a quiet idea forming, something special for Ben, something no one would expect. Keanu's quiet mission, and the unexpected visitor. The sky was a little cloudy that morning, but Ben didn't mind. He liked clouds. They made everything feel softer, quieter. He was walking to work with his usual smile, waving to people he passed. Some waved back, some didn't, but Ben didn't take it personally. He always said, maybe they're having a bad day. His heart gave people the benefit of the doubt. What he didn't know was that someone was already waiting for him at the store. Someone wearing a hoodie, standing near the flower section, blending in, but not really. It was Keanu. He had flown in the night before, quietly, without press or announcement. He didn't want attention. He wanted to do something meaningful, something that couldn't be captured by cameras or shared on social media. This was personal. The moment Ben stepped inside, his co-workers lit up. "He's here," someone whispered. "Wait till he sees." Ben walked in, confused at first. "What's going on?" Then he looked up. Keanu was standing by the entrance to all three, holding a small sunflower in his hand. He smiled, nodded gently, and said, "Hey, Ben." Ben froze, his eyes widened. "K, Keanu?" Keanu walked over, knelt slightly again so he could look Ben in the eyes, and said, "You probably don't remember, but I promised myself that if I ever saw you again, I'd do something special, not for the internet, not for the news, just for you." Ben blinked. "But why?" Keanu tilted his head and replied softly, "Because the world needs more people like you, and because sometimes people like me get all the attention when people like you are the ones holding everything together." Ben smiled nervously. I just like helping." Keanu reached into his pocket and pulled out 2 tickets. They were for a private screening. of Keanu's newest film, happening not in a theater, but in the grocery store itself. "We turned the stockroom into a movie room," Keanu said, smiling. "Popcorn, chairs, everything. Just for today. Just for you and a few of your favorite people." Ben's jaw dropped. "Really? Here." Keanu nodded. "And I'm staying to watch it with you." Everyone clapped softly. Ben turned around to look at his co-workers and his mom, who had somehow snuck in behind him. Wiping tears from her eyes, she hadn't seen her son smile that wide in years. The movie screening was magical. The lights were dimmed, chairs lined up perfectly. The scent of popcorn filled the air. Ben chose to sit between his mom and Keanu. He whispered during the funny parts and gasped during the action scenes. Keanu laughed with him, not as a movie star, but as a friend. After the movie ended, Ben stood up and clapped, not because it was a famous actor's film, but because he felt thankful to be seen, to be heard, to be treated like he mattered. But the day had one more surprise. As they stepped outside to get some fresh air, a car pulled up, slowly, carefully. The door opened, and out stepped Gary Morgan, the man who had insulted Ben just days ago. The parking lot fell quiet. Gary was dressed simply, no sunglasses, no expensive suit, just jeans and a plain shirt. His hair wasn't slicked back. His expression wasn't proud. He walked toward Ben. His steps slowed. Keanu stepped forward slightly, protective, but Ben gently touched his arm. "It's okay," he whispered. Gary stopped a few feet away. His eyes were red. He looked like a man who hadn't slept in days. "Ben," he began, his voice low. "I don't know how to say this the right way, but I'm sorry, truly. I was cruel, I was wrong, and I hurt you." Ben looked down, fidgeting with his vest. Gary continued, "When I saw that video, and then your interview, when you said you hoped I was okay, I broke, because the truth is I'm not okay. I haven't been for a long time. I thought being loud made me strong. I thought being right was more important than being kind. But I was wrong." Ben looked up. "Then you can try again." Gary blinked. "What? You can try again?" Ben repeated. "My mom says we all make mistakes. Maybe you just need a better friend." Gary's voice cracked. Are you saying we can be friends?" Ben shrugged. "Maybe not today, but someday." Keanu watched quietly. He didn't interrupt. He didn't need to. This wasn't his moment. It was Ben's. Gary nodded slowly. "Thank you, Ben. I don't deserve that, but thank you." He turned and began to walk back to his car. But before he opened the door, Ben called out, "Hey, Gary." Gary turned around. "Next time you see someone helping, say thank you." Gary's eyes filled again. He nodded. As the car drove away, Keanu turned to Ben and said, "You didn't just forgive him, you changed him." Ben smiled. "I didn't change him. He wanted to change. I just gave him a little hope." That night, Ben went to bed with the sunflower Keanu gave him sitting in a glass of water by his window. The world outside was still full of noise, full of arguments, but inside his room, it was quiet, soft, peaceful. And tomorrow, Ben would go back to the store, put on his vest, help someone with a shopping bag, smile at a stranger, not because of a viral video, not because of what Keanu did, but because that's who Ben was. And that was more than enough. The letter that changed everything. A few days had passed since the movie night and Gary's apology. Ben was back to his usual routine, helping customers, wiping down carts, and greeting people with that same warm smile. The grocery store felt different now, brighter. People no longer looked through him. They looked at him. They spoke to him. They asked for his help. And more than anything, they thanked him. But Ben didn't let it go to his head. Whenever someone praised him, he'd simply nod and say, "I'm just doing my best." Yet something unexpected was coming. Something that would not only shift Ben's life, but remind the whole world what kindness can grow into when it's shared, not just once, but again and again. It started with a letter. A thick envelope arrived at Ben's home on a Thursday morning. It had no return address, just his name, written carefully in large, gentle handwriting. His mom handed it to him at breakfast. "This came for you." Ben opened it slowly. Inside was a folded piece of paper and something else, a single photograph. It showed a group of kids standing in front of a classroom, holding a sign that read, "Thank you, Ben." Ben's eyebrows lifted. He unfolded the letter and began to read aloud. "Dear Ben, my name is Jenny. I'm 10 years old. I have Down syndrome, like you. Last week, someone at school made fun of me. I was very sad, but then my teacher showed us your video, the one with you and Mr. Keanu Reeves. It made me feel brave. After that, I didn't cry anymore, and today, my whole class made you this sign, because we want you to know you helped me. Love, Jenny." Ben covered his mouth with his hand. His mom was already crying. He whispered, She's like me." His mom hugged him tight. "Yes, baby, and now she's brave because of you." But the letters didn't stop. In the days that followed, dozens more arrived. Handwritten notes, colorful crayon drawings, postcards from all over the world. One came from a firefighter in New York who had a son with special needs. Another came from an elderly woman in Japan who said Ben reminded her of her grandson. They all said the same thing: "Thank you, not just for what happened in the store, but for being you, for showing that quiet kindness is powerful, for being someone who didn't fight hate with hate." And then something even bigger arrived, a formal letter typed, stamped, from a major organization that Ben had never heard of. His mom read it first, then gasped and passed it to him. It was from the International Alliance for Inclusive Workplaces. They had nominated Ben for a National Kindness Award. The letter said, "Your actions, humility, and quiet bravery have inspired millions. We would be honored to recognize you at this year's national ceremony, where leaders from around the world will gather to celebrate individuals who remind us all how to treat one another." Ben's mouth dropped open. "Me." His mom wiped her eyes. "Yes, sweetheart. You." A week later, Keanu called, not texted, not messaged, but called. "Hey Ben," his voice said warmly. "I saw the news. I'd like to be there with you at the ceremony, if that's okay." Ben stuttered. With me, of course," Keanu replied. "It started with us, and I'd like to see where it leads." They met in New York City. Ben wore a navy blue suit, slightly oversized, with a small pin that said helper on his chest. His mother stood beside him, proud and quiet. Keanu walked next to him, not as a movie star, but as a friend, a silent supporter. The ceremony hall was full of important people, cameras, flashing lights. But when Ben stepped on stage, something happened that no one planned. The crowd stood up. A standing ovation. Not for a politician, not for a millionaire, but for a young man who helped someone pick up a can of soup and didn't let cruelty change his heart. Ben approached the microphone. He spoke slowly, softly, but everyone listened. "I don't have big words," he said, "but I know how to be nice. My mom taught me that. Keanu showed me it matters. And the lady who dropped her soup, she smiled at me. So I think being kind is enough." People clapped. Some wiped their eyes. And in the front row, Keanu Reeves stood quietly with his hand over his heart. But something else happened that night, something no one expected. Gary was there. Not as a guest, not as a speaker, but standing near the back quietly. He hadn't told anyone he was coming. He wasn't dressed up. He just wanted to see Ben one more time. After the ceremony, he approached carefully. "Ben," he said, "I didn't want to bother you. I just wanted to say thank you again for what you said to me. It changed me." Ben smiled and nodded. "Then keep going." Gary blinked. "What do you mean, keep going?" Ben repeated. "Don't stop being better." Gary's eyes filled again, but this time there was no shame, only hope. He shook Ben's hand. Keanu walked over. He had seen the whole thing. Gary looked at him and asked quietly, "Do you think people like me can change for real?" Keanu replied, "People like Ben believe we can, and I trust him more than anyone." Outside, the air was cool, calm. The stars above the city shimmered gently. Ben looked up and whispered to himself, "I hope Jenny's smiling tonight." She was. And not just her. The store that became a symbol after the ceremony. Ben returned home, back to the quiet streets, and The grocery store where it had all begun. The lights in the store flickered the same way they always had. The carts still got stuck together sometimes. The bell above the entrance door still jingled in the exact same tone. But everything felt different. Not louder, not busier, just more meaningful. People came not just to buy groceries now. They came to meet Ben. Families with kids, students, travelers from other cities. Some came quietly, just to shake his hand. Others cried and told him stories of how they'd watched the video and how it made them rethink how they treated others. Ben always smiled and listened. Then he'd offer to help them carry a bag or find an item on a shelf for him. It wasn't about the fame. It was about being useful, being kind, being Ben. The store itself began to change. The manager, Mr. Lewis, added a new sign near the entrance. It read, "Kindness begins here," inspired by Ben. Underneath the words was a framed photo of Ben with Keanu, both smiling, both looking like they were exactly where they belonged. But the changes didn't stop there. One morning, the mayor of the town showed up. Ben was organizing fruit when he heard someone clear their throat behind him. He turned and saw a man in a suit holding a small black folder. "Are you Ben?" Ben nodded slowly. "Yes, sir. I'm Mayor Daniels. We've been watching everything you've done, and the city council has agreed. We want to rename this street." Ben blinked. "Rename what? This street?" the mayor said, pointing outside. "Sycamore Street will now be called Ben Reeves Lane, to remind everyone that quiet kindness changes the world." Ben's jaw dropped. He looked at his co-workers, who had gathered behind him, all nodding and smiling. His mom stood near the entrance, covering her mouth, tears running down her cheeks. "Me?" Ben asked, voice shaking. The mayor smiled. "Yes, you, but I didn't do anything big," Ben said softly. Keanu, who had arrived quietly that morning for a surprise visit, stepped forward from the back of the crowd. "You didn't do one big thing," Keanu said. "You did many small things, and that's what makes it big." The street renaming ceremony was simple. No big parade, no loud music, just a crowd of people, young and old, gathered under the new street sign. Ben Reeves Lane stood tall and proud above the grocery store as the mayor revealed the sign. The people clapped, some wiped their eyes, and Ben, standing next to his mother, simply smiled and waved. After the ceremony, a news crew interviewed Keanu. "Why are you still here?" the reporter asked. Most celebrities would have moved on by now. Keanu looked into the camera and answered quietly, "Because this story isn't about me. It's about a boy who reminded all of us what being human really means. I stay because Ben reminds me who I want to be." The clip aired that night and went viral again. But Ben didn't see it. He was too busy helping an elderly man find a can of soup in aisle 5. A week later, something strange happened. A group of store owners from around the country began visiting, not just to meet Ben, but to learn. They wanted to understand how to make their business is more welcoming to people with special needs. They wanted to hire more employees like Ben, not out of pity, not for headlines, but because they saw what kindness could do to a workplace, how it could bring people together. Ben was invited to speak at one of these gatherings. He stood on a stage, hands shaking slightly, and said, "You don't need to change the world all at once. Just help one person, smile at one customer, say thank you, and if someone's slow, wait." His words were simple, but they hit deeper than any corporate speech afterward. A man in the back of the room raised his hand. It was Gary. "Ben," he said, voice strong and steady, "I used to think speed and strength were the most important things in life. But now I know it's patience, it's grace, and I'm trying to live like that. Because of you." Ben smiled gently. Then, "We're both learning." Keanu, standing off to the side, smiled too. He had seen a lot in his life, but nothing like this. The days rolled on. The store stayed open. People kept coming, and Ben kept showing up, vest freshly washed, name tag shining. But now, he had help. The store had hired 3 new employees with disabilities, a young woman with autism, a teenager with cerebral palsy, and an older man who had lost his ability to speak after a stroke. Ben trained them. He showed them the ropes, and he reminded them what his mom always said: kindness is your superpower. Together, they transformed the grocery store into something more than a place to shop. It became a sanctuary, a safe space, a daily reminder that dignity doesn't depend on speed or wealth or fame. One evening, as the sun set and the store was about to close, Ben and Keanu sat outside on a bench. They watched the streetlights come on, watched people pass by. You know, Keanu said, if someone made a movie about this, they'd never believe it. Ben grinned. That's okay. It's real anyway. Keanu nodded. Yes, and that's what makes it beautiful. They sat in silence for a while. Then Keanu added softly, thank you, Ben. Ben looked confused. For what? For showing me that being a hero isn't about fighting battles. Sometimes it's about picking up a can of soup and smiling while you do it. Ben blushed, then said quietly, you helped me too. Keanu smiled. Then we helped each other. The wind was soft. The stars were starting to show. The bell above the grocery door jingled one last time for the night. And in that quiet corner of the world, a simple boy and a humble man sat side by side, not as employee and celebrity, but as friends. The legacy of Ben Spring arrived quietly. Birds returned to the trees outside the grocery store. The wind carried the scent of blooming flowers down Ben Reeves Lane. Children laughed as they played near the benches. People still came in and out of the store, but something had changed in the way they moved, the way they spoke. They were gentler now, softer with their words, quicker to smile, slower to judge. Inside the store, Ben stood in his usual spot, vest buttoned, name tag in place, eyes full of calm and focus. But today, there was something extra in his step, a quiet glow, like someone who had walked a long path and found something precious at the end. A woman with a baby walked in, struggling to carry a basket and push a stroller at the same time. Ben didn't wait for her to ask. He walked over and said, I'll help. The woman smiled, clearly relieved. Thank you, Ben. He nodded and took the basket from her hands. Moments like this had become normal, but they never stopped being special. Meanwhile, far across the country, school teachers showed Ben's story in classrooms. Businesses played the viral video during their training sessions. One university even created a course called the Kindness Model, and Ben's story was part of the first lesson. And yet, Ben never saw himself as famous. He still walked to work, still ate his peanut butter sandwiches at lunch, still watched cartoons before bed. The only real change was that sometimes people on the street stopped him and said, You're Ben, right? And he would always reply the same way, Yes, I'm just here to help. But one day, something unusual happened. A black car pulled up outside the store. Out stepped a woman in a sleek jacket, holding a leather folder. She had come from Los Angeles. She walked straight to Ben. Are you Ben Reeves? He nodded. Yes, Mum. I'm from Sunrise Productions. We'd like to talk to you about a movie. Ben's eyes widened. A movie about me? Yes, she said, smiling. We want to tell your story. Ben was quiet for a long time. Then he asked, Can it help someone? She looked surprised. Excuse me, I don't want it to be about being famous, he said gently. But if it helps someone like Jenny or someone like Gary, then yes, we can do it. The woman smiled. That's exactly why we want to work with you. Within a few months, the project began, and the first actor attached to the film, Keanu Reeves, not playing himself, but producing the movie quietly, behind the scenes. He refused to take credit. This is Ben's story, he told everyone. I'm just here to support it. When the movie was finally released, it didn't open in giant theaters or break box office records. But it did something far more important. It touched hearts. People left the theater in tears, holding their loved ones a little closer. Some reached out to family members they hadn't spoken to in years. Others chose to volunteer, donate, or simply be kinder in everyday life. The message was clear. Dignity belongs to everyone, and even one small act of kindness can echo forever. Back in town, life for Ben continued in its gentle rhythm. Gary now worked with an organization that supported inclusive hiring. He often visited the store to check in with Ben, sometimes just sitting on the bench outside to talk. They'd watch people go by and share stories of their week, not as enemies, not as strangers. But as friends. Jenny, the little girl who had written the very first letter, visited the store with her parents one summer. She ran straight into Ben's arms and hugged him tightly. "I'm brave now," she said proudly. Ben smiled. "I knew you would be." As the years passed, Ben never stopped being who he was: kind, steady, gentle. Some people changed because of his story, others because of his smile, and some just because they saw what one person can do when they choose to stay soft in a world that tries to harden them. One quiet evening, as the sun dipped low behind the buildings, Ben sat on the same bench outside the store. Keanu joined him, as he often did when passing through town. No cameras, no press, just the two of them. They didn't talk much. They didn't need to. After a while, Keanu looked over and said softly, "You know, Ben, this all started with one moment, one person being cruel, and you didn't just forgive him, you gave him hope. And somehow, you gave it to all of us." Ben looked up at the sky. The stars were beginning to show. "I just didn't want anyone to feel small," he said. Keanu nodded. "You made the world bigger, Ben, for all of us." And as the streetlights blinked on, and the bell above the door rang one more time for the night, Ben smiled softly to himself, because he knew the truth. Kindness never ends. It just keeps